My name is Zinnia Calder, and that night, they laughed. It wasn't the kind of laughter that fills a room. It was the kind that slices through you, thin and practiced, the way people laugh when they've learned how to make cruelty sound polite. My sister raised her glass under the string lights, thanked everyone for believing in her, then turned toward me, the family's afterthought, and said, "And to Zinnia, who's always been so good at folding chairs." The room erupted. Even my father laughed. I smiled the way you do when you've been trained to disappear, when silence feels safer than dignity. But something cracked in me then. Not loudly, not all at once, just the quiet snap of a thread that had held for too many years. Because that night, I finally understood. They weren't going to stop belittling me until I stopped letting them. So I set my glass down, and in that tiny motion, I made myself a promise. They had no idea what was already in motion, or how quickly the world they'd built on my silence was about to collapse. The rooftop shimmered in gold that night, every table dressed to impress, every laugh rehearsed. The air smelled like champagne and self-importance. I arrived on time, in the quiet way I always do, the kind that never demands attention. At the reception table, the greeter handed me a badge with no name on it, only a neat little label that read +1. "Who's guest?" she asked, polite but distant. "Family," I said. "Oh, Maribel's family, of course. You're just over there, by the service station." The words landed softly, but they carried a familiar sting. I walked to the corner table, near the clinking trays and citrus-scented cloths. The place reserved for those who don't belong, but were invited anyway. No one looked up when I sat down. When the lights dimmed and the MC called Maribel's name, she floated to the stage in sequins and confidence, her voice wrapped around the crowd like velvet. "Tonight, I want to thank everyone who believed in me, even my sister, who's so wonderfully organized. She keeps every detail in line." Laughter rippled across the rooftop. My father joined in first. My mother followed. I smiled too, but it felt like pressing glass against a bruise. In the glint of my wine, my reflection bent and warped, small, distorted, exactly how they preferred to see me. As the laughter faded, a young server refilled my water and whispered, almost without moving her lips, "I know who you are." Then she was gone. For the first time that night, something stirred inside me, quiet, certain, alive. While the room lifted their glasses to Maribel, I set mine down. Let them toast. One day, they'd finally read the records they never thought I was keeping. I needed air, the kind that didn't taste like perfume and champagne. I slipped away from my corner table, weaving through clusters of laughter and camera flashes until I reached the display stand near the entrance. That's when I saw it. My company's logo, printed clean and small at the bottom of a brochure for the Women in Business Foundation. I pulled the sheet from its frame and read the fine print. Funded by Elysian Ventures. Seattle, Washington. A quiet laugh escaped me. Every spotlight in this place, every floral arrangement and branded banner, was paid for by a decision I had signed off on. I wasn't just attending this event, I had built it. Behind me came a familiar voice. "Didn't think you'd sit through this," he said. I turned. Nathan Price stood there, hands in his pockets, the same measured calm he'd always had. Sometimes silence makes more noise than any speech, I said. He smiled, slow and knowing. "Still the same. You always see further than the rest." "No," I told him. "I just stopped needing anyone to notice." He studied me for a moment longer, then lowered his voice. "I know who you really are. Zinnia. Been curious how long you'd keep hiding it." I didn't answer. I didn't need to, because while my sister posed for photos with the so-called sponsors, I was already calculating the next quarter's projections, already determining who would still have a seat at the table when the lights went down. From across the room, Maribel laughed with a donor and said sweetly, "She's great with numbers. My sister helps me audit everything." I smiled back from the shadows. Audit wasn't the word I'd use. Control was closer. And in that moment, I realized just how completely this whole scene already belonged to me. The scent of the hotel's lemon polish pulled me somewhere else, back to the kitchen of our old house, where Maribel blew out candles in front of a crowd of classmates while I stood by the sink, sharing the leftover frosting with our cousins. I was 10. The adults called me practical, the quiet one, as if being steady was a defect that needed apologizing for. I used to believe that if I worked hard enough, they'd notice. They never did. They only looked where the light hit first. A vibration pulled me back to the present. My phone screen glowed with a board notification. Women in Business Foundation. Funding approved $1.2 million. Authorized by C. I locked the screen. Around me, laughter swelled again. It all sounded rehearsed now, like an orchestra playing a song I'd already composed. Then another alert appeared. A message from my finance director, FYI. Mr. Calder signed a bank guarantee for Maribel's project under Elysian LLC. For a moment, I just stared. My father had used my company's name, my name, to secure another one of Maribel's ventures. It wasn't enough to dismiss me in public. They'd turned me into paperwork, a signature that made their illusions look legitimate. The sting wasn't anger, it was clarity. They didn't want me. They wanted the credibility that came attached to me. I slipped the phone back into my clutch and looked across the room. Maribel's laughter floated like tinsel through the air, bright and hollow. She had no idea that every flash of those cameras, every glowing bulb in her spotlight, was powered by my approval. Let them keep laughing. Soon enough, the next board meeting would come, and I'd be the one deciding whether they ever got another gala to toast under. The gala had reached that unbearable stage when everyone had drunk just enough to believe their own charm. Maribel stood center stage, bathed in light, answering interview questions with the ease of a woman who'd never had to earn her place there. Every phrase that fell from her lips, about leadership, resilience, empowerment, was a recycled fragment from a keynote I'd written for Elysian years ago. When women lift other women, we all rise together, she said brightly. I whispered to myself. That line was mine. Nathan appeared beside me, steady as always, his hand resting on the chair next to mine. They're about to name the main sponsor, he murmured. I know, I said. Are you ready for this? He asked. I took a slow drink of water. I've been ready since the moment they mistook silence for weakness. The host's voice echoed through the rooftop. Before we continue, please welcome the anonymous sponsor who made tonight possible. The crowd fell silent. The card trembled slightly in her hand. Elysian Ventures, and its CEO, Zinnia Calder. Every head turned. I stayed seated long enough for the pause to bruise, then stood, smoothed my dress, and crossed the floor. No applause followed, no music swelled, just the sound of my heels and the heartbeat of 100 people realizing what they'd missed. Maribel's smile collapsed. The microphone slipped from her hand and hit the floor. A single sharp note of truth. Nathan stepped forward, shaking my hand before the cameras. Good to see you again, boss. I reached the mic. Thank you, Maribel, and everyone here, for reminding me that women really can build anything, especially when they know exactly what they're building, even if others think all they do is keep records. The silence was thick enough to feel. Maribel's laugh came out wrong. Brittle, a reporter shouted. Can you confirm she's the CEO behind Elysian Ventures? The host nodded. Flashbulbs exploded. When I stepped off the stage, Maribel's voice trembled behind me. You did this to hurt me. I turned just once. No, I just stood up from the seat you left for me. Then I walked away. Calm and certain, the room still holding its breath. Backstage smelled of sweat and champagne gone flat. Maribel spun on me the second the door closed. You humiliated me. You destroyed my reputation. You destroyed it yourself when you built it on borrowed ground. I said, my father cut in, red-faced, Zinnia, you betrayed your family. We've always relied on each other. I reached into my clutch and placed a sealed envelope on the table. Inside is the proof of what relying on each other means to you. You signed a bank guarantee under my company's name, Elysian LLC. No one spoke. My mother's hand covered her mouth. A glass tipped, red wine spreading like a wound across the table. My father's voice faltered. I did it for the family. No one got hurt. No, I said evenly. You did it for pride. The difference is, I don't need applause to feel valuable. Maribel's voice cracked. Are you happy now? Everyone hates you. I don't need love built on lies. I said, I just need the lies to stop. I picked up my purse, turned to leave, and looked once at their reflections in the spilled wine. Faces distorted where mine was finally clear. They once said I was small, yet here they stood, inside the room I built, surrounded by truths they could no longer hide from. And then I left. The quiet behind me, louder than any ovation. 2 days after the gala, the city woke up to headlines that glimmered like broken glass. Local PR star under fire for misuse of funds. Sister behind the scenes? Who is Zinnia Calder, the mysterious investor? Every outlet had my name on it, even if no one really understood what it meant. At the airport, I scrolled through the stories while waiting to board my flight to Seattle. On the lounge TV, Maribel smiled for the cameras, saying how close we'd always been, how grateful she was for my support. The lie came easily to her. I almost admired how well she could pretend. My phone rang. Zinnia, the press is going too far. I lost 2 contracts. Say something, please. What should I say, Maribel? That you didn't know who funded you? You're destroying me. No, I just stopped pretending. The silence that followed said more than either of us ever had. Moments later, an encrypted email from Nathan appeared. Check this immediately. Funds withdrawn. Signature C. Calder. My father. He'd used Elysian to guarantee another one of Maribel's projects. The same mistake, repeated under a new excuse. I felt the last thread of illusion snap inside me. That night, in my Seattle office, I pulled up the digital archives, fake authorizations, electronic signatures of my name stamped on days I wasn't even in the state. I didn't need proof of betrayal. It was already routine. I could have called the lawyers. Instead, I sent every document to the Women in Business Foundation's board. No accusation, just a line. For transparency. Let the truth handle the rest. On the flight home, I leaned my head against the window, watching the city lights fade into cloud. My reflection stared back, steady, unwarped. Pretending always costs something, and they were about to pay in full. A week later, my assistant slid a newspaper across the conference table. Austin PR, director removed from board amid ethics inquiry. Beneath the headline, a photo of Maribel shielding her face from the cameras. My phone buzzed. My mother's voice trembled. Your sister's falling apart. Please, stop this. I didn't start it. You've torn this family apart. No. Mom! I just stopped painting over the cracks. That evening, the foundation released a statement thanking me for safeguarding its integrity. Maribel was dismissed. My father was under review. I made no comment. Silence, again. Said everything. Nathan found me in my office. They're paying for it now. He said, No, they're learning. I don't need them to fall. I just need them to stop pretending I was never here. That night, my mother's email arrived. You were right. We were wrong, but we're still a family. I printed it, folded it beside the proof I'd kept from the gala. 2 pieces of truth, one born from deception, the other from reluctant honesty. The next morning, rain swept across Seattle. I stepped outside. The air sharp, clean, no stage lights, no noise, only the steady hum of the city and the quiet sound of my own peace. They once called me too quiet. Turns out, silence was the only way they'd ever hear me. The rain had been falling since morning, fine and constant, soft enough to blur the skyline outside my window. Seattle was quiet in that way it gets before dusk, silver light glinting off the water. Everything still except the slow ripple of Puget Sound. I didn't expect the knock on the door. When I opened it, they were there. My father looked smaller than I remembered, shoulders slumped beneath his coat. My mother held a paper bag that smelled faintly of butter and sugar, the kind of cookies she used to make when she thought baking could fix anything. They stepped inside without a word. We sat at the table, the air heavy with all the things we'd never said. Steam curled from the single cup of coffee between us and vanished before any of us spoke. My father's voice cracked first. "I was wrong. But you didn't have to make it public. You humiliated this family. The family humiliated itself." I said, "I just stopped covering for it." He slammed his palm against the table. "Everything I did was for you." "No," I said quietly. "You did it for her. And because you were terrified that without a daughter who looked perfect on the outside, you'd have nothing left to be proud of." My mother began to cry. "Zinnia, please, we all made mistakes. But can't we?" I cut her off, gently. "All my life, I've kept quiet to protect everyone's pride. I'm speaking now, not to hurt anyone, but to protect what's left of my own dignity." The room went still. The light from the window shifted, turning the walls the color of steel. My father's hands trembled. "I just wanted to be proud," he said. "You can be," I told him. "Just stop building that pride on my back." He looked away. No shouting followed, no apology either, only silence, the kind that rearranges the air. When they finally left, I stood by the window, watching the rain slide down the glass. My reflection stared back, calm, steady, unbroken. For the first time, it wasn't distorted by anyone else's gaze. For the first time in my life, they saw me, and I saw myself. A week later, the last of the noise began to fade. The Women in Business Foundation released a formal statement thanking me for maintaining transparency within the female finance community. Maribel's name was absent from the list of board members. The announcement made its way across social media, dissected by strangers who would never know the full story. I didn't comment, didn't step in front of a camera, didn't correct or defend anything. I'd learned there was power in letting silence carry its own truth. That morning, I wrote a short note by hand, folded it neatly, and slipped it inside a cream-colored envelope. I added a photocopy of the forged authorization my father had once signed in my name, the one I'd kept locked away all this time. I left the envelope with the front desk courier and gave no return address. It would arrive at Maribel's old office by noon. The note inside said only, "Truth doesn't need applause." It wasn't revenge. It was release. I wasn't returning evidence to hurt them. I was returning the weight of it so it no longer had to live with me. Later, Nathan called. "You're not filing charges?" "No," I said. "I don't need them punished. I need them to understand. And you? What do you need? Just quiet," I said. He paused, then laughed softly. "You already won. Zinnia, you just did it quietly." After the call, I sat at my desk, the same one where everything had started, the one that had carried years of restraint and restraint breaking. The afternoon light fell warm across the wood. The air felt lighter, like something had finally been returned to its rightful place. My phone buzzed again. Maribel's message. "I don't know whether to thank you or hate you." I typed back slowly. "You don't need to do either. Silence teaches too." Then I set the phone face down. As I walked down the hallway, I passed the new interns, young women full of ideas, laughter spilling between them as they sketched plans across whiteboards. Watching them, I realized this was the sound I'd been waiting for all along. In the end, silence did have a voice. It just sounded like peace. 3 months later, the city felt softer somehow. The rain had lifted, and sunlight poured through the glass facade of the Elysian Women's Innovation Hub. There were no cameras, no sponsors, no champagne, just real women with real work ahead of them. Their laughter filling the open space like something earned, not staged. During the small ceremony, a young woman approached me. Her hands trembled as she said, "I once received a scholarship from your fund. Now I'm starting my own company. Thank you for helping us be seen." The words caught me off guard. I remembered another voice years ago at a different event, whispering the same thing. I smiled. Now, it's your turn to be seen. After the crowd dispersed, I walked into the boardroom. A young employee moved to pull out a chair beside me, but I kept walking, stopping at the head of the table. I think I've earned this one, I said softly. No laughter followed, only quiet acknowledgement. Sunlight streamed through the windows, sharp and honest. For the first time, the reflection looking back at me was whole. They once called me useless, but when the lights went out, I was the one who knew how to make the room glow.